So people would say to me when we were growing up, like, after they found out, they're like, oh, you rescued those animals. And I said, you know what? Those animals rescued us. I think that they came into our lives. And so my mother wouldn't let us feel sorry for ourselves.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Crazy Good Turns, the podcast that recognizes and celebrates people who do amazing things for others. I'm your host, Frank Blake. Usually when I interview people who do amazing things for others, it's amazing things for other people. Today, I'm thrilled to have as a guest Laurie Zaleski, someone who does crazy good turns for animals. Every year, people adopt more than 4 million shelter animals, and the bond between the people who adopt and those animals is special. Just ask anyone driving around with a Who Rescued Who bumper sticker. And today we get to interview Laurie Zaleski, and her story is about rescues, lots of them. Laurie has saved at least 600 animals, and that's just counting the dogs, cats, horses, goats, sheep, and other creatures living at her farm in Mays Landing, New Jersey right now. She calls the place the Funny Farm Animal Rescue. And as you will hear today, Laurie's farm is several crazy good turns rolled into one. Today's story is about second chances. Many of the animals at Laurie's farm are dealing with some very difficult issues. Most would have been destroyed at a normal shelter. The story is also about unexpected friendships. At Laurie's farm, animals roam free, which means they often form unexpected bonds. Laurie will share with us how dogs and cats really can and do get along, and so do geese, chickens, cows, and even emus. The story is also about paying it forward. Laurie didn't have much growing up, so today her farm welcomes anyone to visit free of charge. And tens of thousands of people take her up on that offer. But above all, this show is about caretakers. The people working on Laurie's farm are all volunteers. None of them is paid. All of them spend countless hours helping these animals, which in many cases, I say, they require very special care. And there's also one other element to this story. The Funny Farm is exactly that, fun. It's a place where families and children visit every week and come away delighted. It's a happy place. It comes from not so happy beginnings, as Laurie will share, but it's a happy place. Let's allow Laurie to tell her story in her own words. Here's our interview, and I hope you enjoy it. So, Laurie, maybe a good place to start is with your book, because the title of your book is kind of interesting. It's both suggestive of a good turn and a little bit of craziness. So the book is called Funny Farm, My Unexpected Life with 600 Rescue Animals. So, first off, really? 600 rescue animals? Tell us a little bit about it.
So the Funny Farm is over 600 rescue animals now because when I wrote the book, there were only 600. So I'm trying not to get the numbers too high, but over 600 animals. And I don't know if you know the story, but my mother was going to be a nun and then married the devil, my father. So
Whoa.
Grew up.
Well, that's a pretty powerful first sentence.
It really is. And so it's an unexpected life because none of us expected any of this to happen. The Funny Farm kind of just came about with a series of things that happened in life. So my mom was the ultimate Stepford wife. She was not allowed to have a credit card. She was not allowed to have a driver's license. She stayed at home and took care of the kids. We had a nanny. We were very well-to-do. We had a house in Wildwood, New Jersey, and we had a house in the Poconos. While my dad ran around and was very heavy-handed, and when she found out about the other women, she would say something, and the beatings got worse. So we left. Oh. So the third time that we stayed away, we finally got a house of our own, and it was no electric, no running water.
So what age are you now, Laurie?
I was 5 years old. I know people won't
Just
see me now.
five.
Yes, just five. But I remember that like it was yesterday. The stuff from yesterday, I don't remember yesterday. But when I was, when you have traumatic things, you remember every detail.
Right.
So my mother had no skills. She started working at the shelter and started bringing home all these animals. Hence, the funny farm began, and it's where we rented. It was supposed to be a temporary house, and we stayed there for 28 years. So I, as a young girl, promised her that I would buy her her own farm one day. And in my late 20s, I went to buy her this farm because I found out she had cancer and she passed away right before I made settlement on the
Oh,
property.
wow.
So believe me, she's there. She's at the new place where I am now.
Yeah.
And so I started out with 35 and now I'm over 600 animals. So her dream became my dream.
So give me a little bit of background on rescue animals, how they happen to come into your mom's life and then your life.
Yeah,
and then
so her working there, anybody who was going to be euthanized, any of the animals, we had a horse that had a broken leg, and normally back then they just euthanize, especially a horse. They don't try and mend it; they would just kill them. So my mother was like, I'll take care of it." Now she had no money, she had no vehicle. She was eventually her horse became her vehicle to go to her jobs. But I used to say, "Mom, why do you call our house the funny farm?" And she said, "Because it's full of animals and fit for lunatics." Because she would help not only animals, sometimes there would be extra people there. We had a runaway. We had another one of her friends that her husband was abusive and she came there. So my mother was one of those, she was like a saint. On
huge heart, wanted to help.
And never helped herself, but helped everybody else.
So did she have a veterinary background? Rescue animals, like what would you do with a horse with a broken leg?
She bandaged it up. What she learned in the nunnery. That's all she had. She was going to be a nun. They learned first aid. And she said, we're going to give these animals love. We can't afford vets because we couldn't back then, unless there was like an absolute emergency. She kind of just did what she knew how to do. And we gave them love and as best vet care that we could as a family. And most of them survived and flourished there.
So now you buy this farm. But sadly, your mom is dead. I might have thought, well, I've got a nice farm now. I can stop with the rescue animals, but obviously you didn't. What prompted you to keep going?
Yes, they were our family. So I came with 35. Now, if I had just stopped at those 35 and waited to them, then I would be free and clear now. People would say, "Hey, Laurie, I heard you had this new farm and you have some land. Do you have room for this or that?" And it grew and grew and grew. And then eventually, so I didn't become a nonprofit right away. It took 12 years. I did it on my own. I had my graphic design and photography business at the FAA. And I would feed in the morning and then I would feed again at night. And I was not a great mom because I was very busy. I became a nonprofit once my bills got to be about $4,000 a month for just feed. I said, how am I going to pay my mortgage and pay these animals? So that's why I did it for a tax break. And then people started saying, can I visit? Can I volunteer? And I'm thinking, what's wrong with you people? This is where I live. Like, I don't want strangers here. So
I think I've read that your farm is one of the top 10 tourist attractions in New Jersey. Is that right?
Yep. Top 10 out of any place in all of New Jersey. Yes, we were, and we received #1 family place, beating out like Storybook Land and all these great places last year and this year. So yeah, you know why? Because the animals are loose and when you walk through the gates, you're like, a dog is getting along with a goose and a chicken and a cat and a cow. And they all kind of roam. Not everybody roams. The cows with the big gigantic horns, the bulls are behind a fence. They used to be loose, but they have all been around each other. And I think if you just let an animal, as long as they're not hungry, they're not going to eat each other or kill each other. They learn that they're brothers and sisters. Just like we fight with our brothers and sisters. They might have spats, but they're not hurting each other.
So So what kinds of animals are they? Mostly dogs and cats?
Oh, no, God,
Or
no. No, I have more farm animals. So it's a funny farm. I have like 28 pigs, 30 some goats, 12 donkeys, 13 horses, 2 steer.
I'm sorry, I'm curious. What's the path that leads a pig to your farm? Isn't somebody just saying, okay, too bad, so sad, pig, it's time you're going to be
Vietnamese
baking?
potbelly pigs. You know how everybody was thinking they were doing this pig craze, and I'm like, I got this pig. It's a micro mini pig. By the way, there is no such thing. What they do is they just don't feed them, and they keep them small. Just like if you didn't feed your plant or your kid, they would probably keep them a little bit smaller. And then they realize once they feed them regular, they're growing to 250 or 300 pounds. So most of the majority of my pigs are the mini pigs, but they're not so mini. I do have one hog who is 800 pounds, Wilbur. He fell off of a truck and he was running around in the next town over, and he wound up coming to the farm. He had the big, the earring thing where they say where it's going for meat.
Yeah.
And he's my most gentle pig, and he's 800 pounds. He's wonderful.
So what's the typical path where one of these animals comes to your doorstep?
So somebody has to contact me. People say, where do you get your animals? I don't go looking for them. They find me. And we're usually the last step before euthanasia. So we are taking in elderly, injured, abused, unwanted, disabled. I mean, the ones that just really have no chance. Like if somebody says, oh, I have this, this pig and I'm moving and I can't take it. I'm like, no, figure it out. I'm not a dumping grounds for somebody who just didn't make a good decision. Now, not to say that I've never taken in those, but it's usually the ones that were tossed out or, we're going to be euthanized. I have 2 dogs that have to sit up in a high chair. They have mega esophagus and have to be fed every 3 hours. And they have to...
I'm sorry, what does mega esophagus mean?
It means their esophagus is enlarged. And if they eat like a normal dog, 0 food goes to their stomachs. So they have to sit up like a human, and then the food will go down by gravity. So when we're open at the Funny Farm, 2 days a week, we do this demonstration twice through the day, and people watch, and we teach kids. We take them to schools and teach kids about kindness. And you never know if somebody is feeling sad on the inside, or if they look like normal dogs when they're running around until they get in their chair, and the kids are like, "Why are they in that box? Are their legs broken? What's wrong?" And I said, "No, they just eat differently than the regular dogs." So, we teach about if all these different species can get along, so can you as humans. So it teaches through the animals, and it wasn't on purpose. It's just happens when you have all of these animals together. They all can get along, just like humans should.
So, Laurie, have you become a bit of a veterinarian in this process, so you can kind of see what's happening with your animals?
Yes, I am not a vet. Let's make that clear. But I am allowed to do certain things and give shots, and I can, the vets tell people call Laurie when they have a mega esophagus dog, because I have been able to do things that the veterinarians have not been able to. They always say euthanize them, every vet, because they don't know unless you have one at home. So I just had a woman recently that called me, and she said, finally, after I helped her, I got her a chair for her dog, and everything just worked great. So he's gaining weight, and, they thought he was going to die a couple weeks ago. So, yeah.
What's the most unusual animal or most unusual situation with an animal that you've dealt with at the Funny Farm?
I've dealt with a lot of unusual situations, a lot. So my most unusual animal is, I think, is an emu. I don't know if you've ever seen like the lemur.
Now because of the ads.
Right, the ads.
You see a lot.
I mean, they have a prehistoric feet, and they have like the 3 claws. They look like something out of Jurassic Park, and they walk around. The one that I have grew up in my house. So his name is Connor, and he will walk right up to you, and people are like, what is that? It looks like he's going to peck you, but he just wants to see people. And most emus are fence walkers. They'll just walk up and down the fence. But my animals are super friendly because, like I said, I just let them be, let them feel like they're human or a dog or a cat. So in my house right now, I have 11 dogs, 7 baby guinea hens, 25 cats, a cockatoo, and 2 chickens. That is at the moment. And half the time, my bathroom turns into a trauma unit, my bathtub. So it really is the Funny Farm. You can't even make this stuff up.
So it sounds like sheer chaos.
Yes, controlled chaos, I like to say. There's a reason we're doing the Zoom here at my job and not at my house.
Okay. All right. And so, what's the animal or the situation with the animal that you think you've learned the most from? That you go, wow, I didn't expect that. That's really an interesting insight either into animals, into all of living beings.
I think that there's so many animals that I was on CBS Sunday Morning, and I remember they asked me the question. They said, now, Laurie, do you really think that animals have human characteristics? Or are you giving that to them? Do they really feel grief? And I said, I am not giving them anything. They feel grief. When I had lost one of my dogs, my other dogs took his bed and put it on top of the grave and came and brought all these toys. And the animals just acted sad. They were just different. They knew that, you're supposed to show them when somebody dies so the other animals don't keep looking for them. And they feel grief and they miss you. You know how these dogs get anxious when their parents go off to work? They feel real feelings. So when a turkey acts like a dog and will come up and cuddle you, it's a very strange feeling thinking that, wow, I've never been around a turkey and I've never hugged or kissed a turkey until they came to the funny farm. And you have a whole new perspective on animals. And that's just a turkey, all of them. I had a skunk, same thing. People would hold a skunk and be like, I never knew that they could be like a kitty cat, that they're cuddly and that they'll nuzzle up in your hair, because you don't have that opportunity often. So it's amazing what animals.
And truly, and they don't attack you. You don't have horrible mishaps with them.
Knock wood, Frank. So we make everybody sign a waiver before they come. It is free to get in because my mother had no money for us kids to go anywhere. So I keep.
This is for anybody shows up
Anybody
twice,
shows
2
up
days a week.
2 days a week, Tuesdays and Sundays. It's free. And my volunteers yell at me and say, Laurie, we had 2,500 people today. If you charged $1, that would have been 2,500. And I say, you know what? It will come back to us. Don't you worry about it. And I had a woman once, I was on a hayride and I was telling the story about how I keep it free. And this woman started crying and I'm like, what happened? And she said, I was in the same situation as your mom. She was getting no child support, no alimony. She couldn't bring her kids anywhere but the funny farm. And she finally got it back on her feet. And she handed me a $20 bill, which might have been like $500 to her. And was crying and made me cry because I could feel how important it was to her. So that's one person that told me that it was someplace where their kids want to go. If you say, you want to go to the zoo, Disney World, or the funny farm, a lot of the kids say the funny farm. And I think it's just that sheer hands-on animal excitement. And I'm not saying that it's perfect, Frank. We've had nips of horses, they're animals. We have geese that are trying to give you a kiss with their hard beak on your leg sometimes. So things happen, cat scratches. Knock wood, we've never been sued. And like I said, hopefully that waiver will help. And I'm just doing what I learned from my mother, that they all kind of got along and are together and are happy. So like I said, we should learn everything like that as a human.
And so now you have over 600 animals. I mean, does it just keep building and building and building? Or do you have a certain number? Do you think, well, this farm can maintain maybe another 25, or we're pretty much at max capacity, or we're going to keep growing?
In some of the departments, when I say like the cat department, we have over 200 cats. I have volunteers that are just like the cat women that come every day to feed those animals. I go to work. I feed certain animals, and then I have my volunteers. We're all volunteer run. We have no paid people. So I have to be careful of that.
It's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. And these people show up. People are like, how do you get these people to help? These are people that love animals. And it feels good to give to something. And the animals look at you like, thank you so much. You can feel their love and that you're helping an innocent animal that can't feed and water itself. To answer your question about, do we have a max? We don't, because we just added on acreage. I just bought 10 more acres, so we're at a total of 25. I do have some other properties in the area where I have an overflow. So I took in 2 horses that were going to be euthanized, and I didn't feel that they should have been. There was nothing really wrong. And so I have a renter that rents that. And I said, part of your rent is you have to take care of these 2 horses. I'll pay for everything, but you have to help me care for them. So it's been working out great. So we have some kind of other ideas that if somebody really needs a home, we're going to find them a home. And if we can't take it, then we try and help place them somewhere.
Wow. So what prompted you to write the book and tell your story and tell the story of the Funny Farm? And what did you learn from writing the book?
Oh, my goodness. Well, first of all, how hard it is to write a book. I
exactly.
I didn't really know the process, even though I'm a graphic designer and I do layout and I talk to the printers and do all that. When it comes to writing a book, I learned about getting a literary agent and what the process is, because a lot of people are self-published. Like, we're self-published for 3 children's books. That means Artsy Graphics, we laid it out, I did the design, I put my photos in, I had my social media guy rate it. Super easy, right? Not so much in this. Now, my literary agent asked 3 publishers and all 3 said yes at once. The reason I wrote it was I had met a few people that were interviewing me about the farm, and the one woman became friends with me. She wrote for a couple different places, and she started to learn more and more and more about my past. It's not something I would brag about if you know the book. There are things about my best friends are like, why didn't you tell me? And you're like, it's not something you brag about to your friends when you went to school the next day. So I was telling her a little bit, and she said, Laurie, you have to write a book. And I thought, I can't write a book. She said, no, I can get you people. You could figure it out. So I kind of did it because I wanted people to know about my mother. It's really not a story of my life. It's kind of a love letter to my mom. She was my superhero. People say to me, you had such a crazy upbringing. I can't believe you didn't turn to drugs and alcohol. And I said, if I had a different parent, I may have. But she was that person. She was the most positive person that I've ever met. And she really was an angel on earth before she became an actual angel. And everybody loved her. My friend, it wasn't just me. My friends would be like, I need to talk to your mom today. I'm feeling really down. And she was very level-headed. She was not judgmental. Whatever it was, she would be like, it's okay. We'll figure out a way. Don't you worry about it. So, people say, don't you worry about being poor. And I'm like, ooh, poor. Goodness. We were poor. It made me who I am in it, and I wouldn't change anything except for maybe making my mother's life easier. The fact that we all struggled makes the rest of life like, oh, this is all you got? I feel like, easy street now compared to when we were growing up. So I wrote the book as a tribute to her because I want people to know her, because she died at 52, Frank. So it was way too young. Yeah, way too young. And I just feel like not enough people knew who she was. And now you can read the book and go, people say, I feel like I knew your mother and I love her. So, and that's what I want.
And when you were writing it, did you get a feeling that it was way tougher than you understood at the time? Or, what was, as you reflected on it, what was the direction of your reflection?
Well, first of all, it was like therapy that I didn't know I needed until I wrote the book. So I was doing tape recordings of what was happening and telling stories. And in the middle of me talking into my phone or the tape recorder, I would just lose it. And I had to stop. So that's why if you read the book, there's the story of my mother's life, our life growing up, and my dad tortured us. It could be a pretty heavy read, but it's an easy read. It sounds like the way I speak. So it's not written on a super high level, but it's a hard read. And in between are stories of the animals that are there at the farm now. And when you get to that animal story, you're like, whew, I needed that animal story, because I was never going to mix them in, but I felt like I needed a break, from my regular life, because it could be heavy. Everyone has crap in their life, everyone. So we just have some different, like I'm sure you do. Everybody does. And when you look at those perfect people, you think, oh, they never had crap. Everybody has stuff. So a lot of people have really said, oh my gosh, I related so much to your story, whether it was the abuse or being poor or, being embarrassed from being poor or whatever the case may be, or animals or whatever it is. I've had so many people say, I related to your book on so many levels, and it helped me with my own life now. And kind of being able to talk about things. So like I said, I didn't know I needed therapy until after, and I was like, holy moly, was I holding in a lot, because I would be crying. Even after I wrote it, I would go back to reread it. I would start bawling again, and I'm like, okay, I need to take a break from this. So I tell everybody, if you have something on your brain, write it down, get it out. You might need to.
And as you were writing it, did you think, This extraordinary caring for animals in need was some way of handling the trauma that was happening elsewhere in your life. How does that fit?
That's a great point that you just brought up. So people would say to me when we were growing up, like after they found out, they're like, "Oh, you rescued those animals." And I said, "You know what? Those animals rescued us." I think that they came into our lives, and so my mother wouldn't let us feel sorry for ourselves. Like, look at these babies. As bad as we have it, somebody always has it worse. And look at these animals. They
That's
need
so
us.
brilliant.
So she was amazing. And she was the kind of person, here we came from a, 4-bedroom, all of us had our own bedrooms and we were spoiled. And all of a sudden we moved into a 1-bedroom house. My mom lived in our living room on a couch. My brother kind of grew up in a larger closet, and my sister and I shared the 1 bedroom, and we would cry like, we want to have our own place. And we would start crying, and she would say, "That's okay, kids, keep crying. The more you cry, the less you pay." And that's just what would happen. And she just would not let us feel sorry for ourselves.
So how do your siblings react to Funny Farm? Is this a way for them to reconnect with your mom, or do they go, "Oh my gosh, we're glad we're not here"?
So my brothers and sisters, eventually they would be like, "You know what? This is not really what we signed up for. So you're good, right?" They both helped me in the very beginning, but now, everybody has their lives. So now I have volunteers helping me, thank goodness. But if I ever have a really big problem, I can call them and they'll be there. But in the beginning, they all helped me because, the place was a little rough to begin with, but nothing like where we started. So it was, I actually bought the house before I even saw the house. I saw the barn. I said, the barn's nicer than our house right now. So yes, let's get it.
Yeah. So as you've built the farm, or as you've built your business, or through whatever point in your life, we always ask this to folks who are on the podcast. Who is someone, and in this case, someone other than your mother, who's done a crazy good turn for you that you'd like to say, boy, this person is just what an extraordinary gift of kindness this person gave to me?
So I almost can't pick just one. It would be can I say my volunteers as a whole? I have a team of volunteers. It has to be one person?
Well, you can pick your volunteers as a whole, but give one description. Here's an example.
Okay, so I have an example of a couple. I mean, it could fit a lot of my core volunteers where every single day they show up at this farm and are there to help no matter what the weather, no matter what the holiday. And if that's not,
that's extraordinary.
People say, really? I can't get people to show up to their paid job. How are you getting these people to show up to be a volunteer? I don't get it. And it's the love of these babies. And all of these animals have become everybody's animals. They're not just my animals. I share them with everybody. Everyone feels like they're my horses and my goats and my pigs and skunk or whatever it is. Everybody feels like, because we all take care of it takes a village to take care of these babies. Before it was just me, I had a lot less. I had under 200. Now that we're over 6, it's too much for one person. But these people are incredible. And my friend Marjorie is my editor and the person who talked me into doing this book. I want to do a shout out to her because without her, I would not have been able to do this, and I would have come up with it on my own until she gave me the little push that I needed.
Probably an unfair question. It's like asking a parent who's their favorite child. But do you have one of your animals that you go, boy, this one just speaks to me in a particularly unique way?
So of course, my dogs that have mega esophagus, when I had lost my mom, that was the toughest thing. When I had lost my dog, Chucky, he was the second biggest hardest death that I had to deal with, was this dog, because he's the one who had to eat sitting up. He would eat almost every hour. I would try and feed him because he was so skinny. He had the worst case of mega esophagus. So after he passed, I then took in another dog named Tucker, and he has megaesophagus. So he is like my big black shadow, big, huge German Shepherd. And if I go somewhere, if I'm on the farm anywhere, they all know if I'm in a certain building because the dog's sitting outside waiting for me. So I have 11 and I love them all, but he and I have a special, special bond, I have to say.
That's very cool. So just talking with you, and I hope our listeners get a sense of it, you have such high energy. What do you do that recharges your batteries? Because it's got to be exhausting. You've got your own business, and then you go home, and there's zero relaxation in your home. There's some emu putting a face in you. And what recharges your batteries?
My battery, I have a motorcycle. I will drive to my airport, and then I'm a private pilot. So I enjoy flying, and it's a little 2-seater airplane. I go up, and I forget about everything because you really can't, when you're flying, you can't think about much else. But people are like, oh, can I go? I kind of want to just go by myself because I don't get very much down or quiet time. I really enjoy coming to work because it's not super loud, although I love my animals. It makes me love my animals more when I go home. But I would say flying is just like kind of visiting my mother closer to heaven. I just love going up in the airplane.
And what do you think, what do you think your mother would say if she saw Funny Farm?
Oh, she is smiling down, and don't you for a second think that she is not bugging me. There are times where I have these lights, they flash, and she's trying to tell me something. I'm like, I got it, Mom. I'm good. Just go. We're good. Because in the beginning, I was crying for 3 months, and I know she thought, oh, this flaky artist, she's going to not be able to do this. And I was having all these issues with my lights, and so she is smiling down. If she were here, I'm afraid we'd have double the amount of animals, though, because she and I together were really bad. I'd be bringing them home. She'd be bringing them home. So she would be tickled pink. I know that. And I think that she is there every day.
That's amazing. And the final question is, you've got an enormous number of followers. You've got all these people who are coming to the farm. Do you see this? Where do you think things will be 5 years from now?
I think it's going to be like Disneyland, except for it's going to be Funny Farm. I said Disney started somewhere. So it's starting to be a destination. So people, now I'm getting, we were in People magazine. We were on CBS Sunday Morning. So people are seeing these animals walk around loose or seeing pictures with all these animals together. They want to see it for themselves. And we do a live video, a Facebook Live from 10 to 11 on Sundays. So people that can't get there, like that are in the UK, they watch that and they start seeing it. And then they're like, I want to go there. And then when they get there, I have actually had people cry when they see certain animals. They're like famous and they actually cry and like, is this really Tucker? It's amazing. So I have to ask, like, where are y'all from? We want to see the furthest away. And they come from all parts of the world, not just the United States now. So it's starting to become a destination, this little tiny farm that my mom once started in Turnersville and now is in Mays Landing, and it's getting bigger, and who knows what's gonna. People say, I never thought I was gonna be here, so how can I say? But I do see it growing exponentially over the last year for sure.
What just an extraordinary story and a great testament to your kindness and energy. For people who are interested, what is the best way to see what we've got your book, and we'll give your book out free to some listeners because it is such a compelling story. But where else should they learn about Funny Farm and Laurie Zaleski?
So they can go to the website, funnyfarmrescue.org, because we are a nonprofit. It's not .com. So funnyfarmrescue.org. We are also on Facebook and Instagram. And we are the type of place that's very happy. So it's not like you're not going to get there and feel like you want to shoot yourself. You get there and it rejuvenates you. It makes you happy. Those are the places. If you want to donate, we have an Amazon and a Chewy wish list. Where you can just donate through our website as well. But if you want, just come visit. Again, it is free to get in. So if you're between jobs or you just don't have a lot of money, come on and visit. And you will definitely feel better once you meet the critters.
Well, Laurie, congratulations, and thank you so much for spending some time with us. This has been just an enormous treat. What an extraordinary accomplishment.
Thank you so much, Frank, for having me. I really appreciate your time as well.
Hope you all enjoyed this conversation with Laurie. I think you can get a sense of the energy and passion she brings to her crazy good turn. Before we close our show, I want to say that we're excited to announce our latest book giveaway. As I mentioned during the interview, Crazy Good Turns will be giving away 50 copies of Laurie's book, Funny Farm, My Unexpected Life with 600 Rescue Animals. To sign up for your chance to win a copy, visit our website at crazygoodturns.org/funny-farm. That's crazygoodturns.org/funny-farm. There, you'll find a transcript of today's interview along with a button where you can sign up for a chance to win a copy of her book. As always, I want to thank the team that makes Crazy Good Turns possible. Our producers, Brian Sabin and Megan Hanlon, editing and mixing by Score, and Leslie Nunn for keeping this operation going forward. Thank you to all of them for the hard work that they put into making this program what it is. And finally, I want to express my gratitude to you, our listeners, for being part of a community that celebrates people who do good things for others, humans and animals. Your giving of your time to listen to these interviews and acknowledge these good deeds is a crazy good turn of its own. So thank you very much. I hope to see you again soon in our next episode when we celebrate another crazy good turn.